right, I'm going to open this meeting of the Nottingham Board of Selectmen for Monday, October 28th, 2019. And if you'd all rise with me and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Back to the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we don't have any manifest tonight, correct? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so first item is to approve minutes. We finally get to approve minutes for the September 23rd, October 7th, and last week's October 21st.
Is everybody okay with the single motion, or is there anybody who wants to discuss one individually?
You found the one typo,
Yeah,
Ben?
one typo on 923, line 63. I just
It
found
says
that.
2010 instead of 2020.
Did you share that with Lorraine?
Did you print it, or can we, no, just?
I can email it to you, yeah.
Okay, cool, that'd be great.
That was 9:23.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of October 21, 2019, October 7th, 2019, and September 23rd, 2019, as amended.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor? Unanimous? All right, action items from last meeting was to prepare to discuss road standards tonight, which is later on in our agenda. So nothing more there. Reports from committees, was there any committee activity in the past week? Marston, planning, budget? No?
The only thing that's different is CIP. Chris received the worksheets from the school board. But I did not have a chance to look at that. And I think they want to come to our board to talk about their future plans.
Here or the,
As I read it, it was they wanted to come here.
Yep. So I suspect you're going to schedule with them.
If you want me to reach out to do that, I will do that. Sometime, well,
December.
we're in it now, so, yeah, it's.
Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
December, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
find a hole and squeak it in.
Anybody know of travel things that you wouldn't want to miss that?
First week of December, I will be down in DC. I can tell you exactly when.
Yeah, I think I'm in New York that week. It's like December 3rd.
Yeah, 3, 4, and 5, I'll be in
Yeah.
DC. But I will be, I don't know if we have the,
We're on the 2nd.
Yeah,
we
we're
are on the 2nd? Okay,
I think I can be here on the 2nd.
yeah, me too.
I'll just fly to New York at 6 a.m.
Does that sound good for you guys?
Yep.
2nd, okay. Alrighty. All right, next up, town administrator.
I'll give you two quick things. One is to ask you, I sent you this Friday, to sign the updated revaluation contract with Avatar. This is identical to the one we negotiated and signed 4 years ago, but we need a fresh one to give to the state before we go into reval that you have seen. This is from Senator Regan. He is among a few officials who have sent us the formal listing of the municipal grants from the legislature, from the state budget.
Oh, good.
We've touched on $42,377 this year and next.
Chris, how are we signing this?
You are signing right there. I only need 3 of you, I guess.
Okay.
So that one-time grant from the legislature, they'll come up in our highway talks later. The 2019 funds are unanticipated revenue. You can do with it what you wish. The 2020 funds will show up in the town budget as revenue, so that'll go through the normal appropriation process for 2020.
So this total new state aid 300?
That includes changes in the school
Schools,
stuff
okay.
as well as the municipality.
Okay, so it's 42.
Just three.
Just
We only
three.
need
Yes,
three.
42 this year. Fiscal 2020 is the state fiscal year, which ends next June.
Okay. And then what's the ongoing?
That is school-related, but I can't explain.
Oh, yeah, that,
I
it says
can't explain
education,
how.
I got it now, okay.
Yeah, I don't know how that fits in with the school.
Okay. No, every little bit helps, right?
So nothing to sign here, is it just informational?
Correct.
Oh, I see, all right, so this is grand total. This grand totals for the next biennium, next 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's the state biennium that we're in right now, which started in July. But the check the first year check has arrived here in town, so that makes it 2019 money.
Okay.
The second one, they've told us, will arrive in calendar 2020, so.
You had an update on Ledge Farm, you
Yeah,
said?
you want, when Sean's gonna fill the whole meeting with road stuff. If you
Oh, okay.
Call him up, he can do it better than I
Okay.
can if you.
Was Courtney coming to discuss her?
No,
Okay.
unless you need it.
Any questions on any of that?
Pretty straightforward.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay. All right, moving on to Class 5 road standards.
Come on down. All right, we got this last week.
Yep. Hey, Sean. Good, how you doing?
How you doing?
So your directive to us a couple meetings ago was to propose a standard that we would use for Class 5 roads. Class 5 roads being town-owned roads. We don't have any set policy or standards in place. We have practices and customs. We have standards for newly constructed roads. You see those in the subdivision regulations. Those are the purview of the planning board. There's one way to create a new road is to go through the planning board, typically through a subdivision. They often build a road. Those specifications are there in the subdivision regulations. They are more comprehensive than these. They're much more detailed. The end result is, I think, comparable. We didn't do a line by line, but so what we're really talking about here with these Class 5 roads is what are the standards that we should shoot for in roads that we already own, that already exist, whether they're gravel or asphalt, doesn't matter. They're still Class 5 roads. We still maintain them. Remember, Class 5 is a town-owned road that the town maintains. Class 6 road is a town-owned road that the town does not maintain. We own the rights to it in a way, but we don't spend any money to maintain it. We have very few examples of that. Silly French, a piece of Haynes. I don't know, little chunks here and there, not very much. The vast majority of what you think of town roads are Class 5 roads.
So the Class 5 roads, just by way of example, are like Garland.
Flutter,
and
McCrillis,
Flutter, McCrillis.
Mountain,
And
Lakeview.
what's the one, across from Marston that turns into dirt.
Case.
So all of Case Road.
The whole thing.
Even though some of it is gravel, yep.
Yep, so yeah, so the surface doesn't matter.
Yep.
Either it's a class 5 or it isn't. We have a few oddball cases where pieces of a named road are class 5 roads and other pieces are class 6, like Haynes. There's 2 class 5 sections with a class 6 in the middle, which is a fluke of history. I don't know how that happened. We have some that are class 5 for part of it and private for other parts. Robin Hood has a little stub, Swan has a little stub like that. Swan and Fort Hill, we don't really know where one road ends and one belongs, where one ends, and we kind of think it's a class 5, but we're not really sure. So there's some things that don't fit nicely in here. It's not the entire road necessarily.
Yep.
Some of the road acceptances in the past have been to accept the paved portion of a road, which is where the Swan thing comes from and the Robin Hood thing comes from. Lakeview's got a little stub off it that's private and it's labeled sometimes as one thing. So
Yep.
not everything fits neatly in this when you think of a whole road, but we are getting pretty close to knowing exactly what we own and what we don't know. But there are still a few pieces that are outstanding. So anyway, these class 5 road standards are something that we would presumably use if we were to reconstruct a road or do major maintenance on it. These are the standards that we would be trying to get to if we aren't there already. If we were to move a class 6 road back to class 5, perhaps, maybe this is a standard that you would apply to that road before you did that.
So just to be clear here, is that what you're thinking? Are you thinking emergency lanes when you say that?
No, I think, one of the reasons I think that you asked us to come up with this standard for what should a class 5 road be is if you want to have a standard for a pre-existing road that isn't a class 5, a private road, that was lesser than these standards, you had to have at least something to know what's the what's the true standard, and then if you want to adopt something less than that,
Correct.
for different flavors of
Yep.
road, you have that. But
Yep. Yep.
this is where we would want, eventually we'd want every road to get to this. This is, Sean did most of the legwork, so, and you can cut me off at any time. We dug around, found a bunch of examples. I think we sent you the cover pages of a lot of documents we looked
Yep.
at.
Yep.
And found really that the work has really been done. Those documents are pretty consistent in terms of the major pieces, construction methods and dimensions, and geometry. They're all similar. They're not exactly the same. And New Hampshire DOT has a great document that we pretty much just copied and said, this looks pretty good.
And that's this.
That's the second one that you have.
Yeah, yeah.
We could do all kinds of things, spend all kinds of time, but it's already been done.
Yeah.
So New Hampshire DOT's got a pretty good idea.
I was curious about the date on that, because that is 2003.
Yeah, that's not surprising. I don't think much has changed in
No.
the science of road
Okay.
design and
just-
building, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, nothing's changed in that nature.
Yeah. Yeah, things have probably changed more with methods than with materials and geometry.
So the standard is mature, it's the techniques that evolve over time.
Yeah, probably.
The techniques are actually similar as well. I mean, it's the crown of the road, it's a 5% crown for the road. And just constant, well, not constant maintenance, but grading maintenance, shoulder work, ditching, things of that nature. There's not a written document. I called around to several communities around here, like Deerfield and Lee. Nobody has a written maintenance document. They know what needs to be done through their training and experience, and then they go out and take care of what needs to be done. And that's what I found when I was digging around looking for stuff, that I couldn't find anything with the state as far as a maintenance guide.
Yeah, I think these are designed with driver safety in mind, first and foremost. You know, that comes up in the geometry, and the durability
Yep.
and maintenance aspects. I think those have got to be the two biggest
Right.
factors in how they get to these things. looking at, there was a whole stack of things we gave you glimpses of, Minnesota, South Dakota, Vermont, Maine, very similar themes, and the geometry is pretty well established. You see different, a little bit different differences in thickness, that can be climate driven or whatever, but, anyway, you boil all that down, this, I think, would produce a good standard for us. It applies. The only varying thing that you see in a few of the sample documents is roads with very low traffic, less than 50 cars a day. You'll see some of these standards allow for narrower
Yep.
roads and slightly, but not dramatically, shorter or less deep, shallower road bases.
Right, the less amounts of gravel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they just don't take the beating.
Yep.
I don't know, is there anything else we should add to that?
No, I think you covered it.
So I have a quick question. If we were to adopt these as minimum standards for class 5 roads, what is preventing a developer from challenging the guidelines that they're supposed to follow in a new development? And the other part of the question is, is it because these roads already exist, why the planning board's not involved?
Yeah, the planning board already they have already established a better set of,
Okay.
than this.
But that's for new construction though, not,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, so I guess we could say, pre-existing town roads, as opposed to town roads globally.
Right, because the only way this would actually be really in effect would be if the town decides to make their own new road.
Yes, it's a
We
very
would build
limited
our-
application.
We would need to set the standard of our own class 5 road.
Right. Yes, I mean,
The developer has to standardize to the 25 feet or whatever, the 2-foot runoff, the drainage front, and all that stuff, because that's set in the planning board regulations on a development.
Yeah. Or if we were reconstructing a road, we have some roads that probably don't meet this standard, in depth or in width, depth more often than width.
Right.
But as you'll see, as we reconstruct roads, we're already in practice doing these, like in Ledge Farm. Ledge Farm, I think, is it wide enough throughout? I think at 22?
No, there's that one
Is
section.
there one section
On the
that-
curve that just, the K value goes down, so the speed limit goes down to
Yeah.
20 there.
Yeah, so that's a case where we need to step aside from the standards because the topography and the land we own don't allow us to meet this standard.
Yeah.
But in general, this is what we're shooting for.
Yeah. I think to Ben's question, the second paragraph here that says, "These design standards are developed to guide the reconstruction or relocation of existing class 5 roads or the consideration of road acceptance outside of the planning board's processes and regulations such as the subdivision regulations." I think that clarifies and distinguishes it.
Distinguishes it from
Well,
construction that the planning board would have authority
right,
over.
from a developer coming
Yeah.
in and saying, well, why can't I build to these standards?
Yeah, I'd run that language by our attorney
Yeah.
before you went any further with it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I chatted with them about the concept, but not the language, so.
Yeah. I mean, the things that stuck out to me were kind of like, the things that quantify, like, streets will be laid out to intersect at right angles as nearly as possible, and no street shall intersect another at less than 60 degrees. Like, I mean, that's kind of like hard for me to visualize, and do we actually have any that don't meet that now?
Well, think 152 and 156. Now, granted, those are state highways,
Those are
but
state highways.
those intersect pretty sharply.
Well, you've got Lamprey
Freeman
and
Hall
Dam and all that down there.
And
Yeah.
Priest Road.
Priest and
Freeman.
Priest and Freeman Hall might
Yeah.
not meet that.
Okay.
Olive Dam Road.
Private.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there are some
Maybe,
that don't meet that today, that if we were to do work on that, then
We
the,
would certainly try.
try to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing with the, dead-end streets. Designed to be permanently shall be no longer than 1,000 feet. I mean, that doesn't seem very long.
No, and I think the subdivision regulations say 2,000 feet. I think. That's driven by the amount of hose on one of our fire trucks.
Okay,
But we were trying to think of dead ends that are, we have Round Pond, which kind of turns into a state road. It isn't technically a dead end. We
Okay.
have Robin Hood drives down into the lake,
okay,
essentially. We don't have a lot of dead ends.
Okay. okay.
Does that apply to cul-de-sacs?
Well, that's what we have is cul-de-sacs and
Yeah.
not dead ends. Here's a way to go around.
Right.
Right, okay. And then the 10% grade. Street grades where feasible should not exceed 10%. Again, it would seem like there are a lot of towns and road that have greater than 10% grade.
Stevens Hill,
Ledge Farm,
Ledge Farm.
Poor Farm.
Guile,
They're greater than 10%?
maybe,
They would have to be greater.
Steepman was, yeah, it's not as drastic.
yeah.
What is,
So here, like, take the Ledge Farm example, one of the things we're doing is easing that grade, we're evening that grade
yeah, but you're
out.
not going down to 10%.
No, we're not meeting this, but we're approaching it.
Yeah.
That's the,
And Stephen Hills, what's the grade on that?
I don't know, I have to go out there. and
Yeah.
I
measure
mean,
it.
what's your,
I don't, I'm
It's
terrible at that.
It's gotta be a minimum of 10% easy.
Yeah.
oh, I would think at
Yeah,
least.
I don't know what, right off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, again, I just wasn't sure of how many roads in town were way outside of that.
Yeah, but not a lot, some.
No, there's
But-
probably a handful.
Okay, okay. Okay,
And
Should
and not
the-
something that would be approved to be built today,
sure,
right?
yeah.
The steep slope ordinance that was being considered at the planning board had a not to exceed 15, I think it was 12 to 15% was the range.
Is that a
max.
driveway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any reason not to align those?
Speed,
Well,
we
yeah.
don't maintain the driveway, so we don't,
Right, no, I'm thinking,
Yeah,
thinking the other direct, like,
Yeah.
the driveways, have the driveways in alignment with the road standards, but you're right, yeah, smaller tracts of land are gonna have steeper,
yeah,
Keep a
the
geography.
flip side of that is you take land out of development on almost automatically if you have too tight a regulation.
right,
And that was also, when they were talking about that, there was a concern because the longer of the driveway for the fact of the fire truck getting in
yeah,
and having such a steep slope and, or having it go up so hard that the truck being so long, it can't make it because it's too long to go up.
right. The bumpers
So-
that scrape and the, yeah,
So those are some of the concerns why they were talking about those dimensions of people when they build their houses or, excuse me, when developers come in to develop the land. You know, making sure that those driveways on those new developments meet that standard, so that the fact that they could be accessed for emergency vehicles,
right,
which is something you can easily dictate when you're building and just, you know, constructing a whole development, because you're blasting and you're taking everything out, you know.
right, yeah, it's easy.
One of the arguments too was the fact that if somebody owns a piece of land in town and they're on that slope, because there is quite a few hilly parts, and they're taking their own driveway and building it in, how that might affect them. So that was part of the discussion of whether, you know, do we enforce it more just on the fact of, you know, development factors, or if it was also determined that it's gonna be, you know, on every single individual basis. That was part of the discussion. I forgot how it totally ended, but I'm just saying that that was part of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, we had quite a few discussions on that. When I was sitting in on the planning board, and the one particular development off Route 4 had some extremely steep proposed driveways that we had to ask them to flatten it out. And what about the subgrade? I mean, some of the roads we have absolutely no knowledge of what was put under there historically. I mean, obviously, you're not gonna dig them up to figure it out, but those would simply be, at the time they were reconstructed, they would be brought into compliance with whatever the standard happened to be.
Yes, whatever upgrades need to be made with gravels, or, we got a process where we can take an existing dirt road, and put 2-inch rock on it, and just crush it all in and give it the condition, the gravel that's there now,
Yeah.
revitalize it and use that, without getting into some full box work like they're doing on Ledge Farm, digging everything right out.
Right.
So there's different, means and methods of getting to the same result, of fortifying the base gravels.
So on any individual road basis, like if we were starting reconstruction on the road, on any individual road basis, this would be, as you were saying, what we would strive to. But then there's gonna be further decision-making around the resources required, the budget, the feasibility, and all of that. So it's not like every project instantly we're gonna go, oh God, we gotta do everything to get exactly to this standard.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we're doing one right now in Ledge Farm where we're trading off,
Yeah.
astronomical cost
So,
versus,
Yeah, but that construction on Ledge Farm is a little above, our DPW's standard of what they're gonna be able to obtain, to do. So that's obviously why that's a bigger than if you were on one of the other roads where we're talking about throwing gravel down and re-scraping and stuff. That's stuff that you guys can handle.
Correct.
You don't have to go to that level.
right.
So that could be also maybe built into the budgetary of knowing what we're gonna do for next year, X road here or X road here like we did,
Yep.
where you don't have to pave or just gravel or add it to I forgot the name of the line item, but whatever.
Chip and seal coat.
Yeah.
Chip and seal
Yeah,
coat.
seal coat, yeah.
Everybody's favorite line.
Yeah, it means so much.
Yeah.
What's in there, who knows?
So this last item, minimum standards, so it's recommending to use better standards than these as a minimum where you can,
Correct.
yeah. So we're not,
and that would typically be width and
Yeah.
straightness.
Yeah, gravel thickness, hot top thickness.
Yeah.
What do you mean by liberal values in that statement? The use of more liberal values than these minimum standards are recommended.
They want you to.
He's the last guy that's gonna do liberal value.
Well, that's not where I was going, but the use of, is it supposed to suggest that you're encouraged to at least meet these minimum standards,
the
but go
minimum.
further?
Try to increase them.
Right. So, I
Be
mean,
more generous in the amount of gravel that you're using.
Yeah.
and things of that nature. Good
Okay.
product versus leaving what is questionable there in the ground.
so I just, I get what you're saying, liberal is meaning, try to do more, use your judgment, do the best you can. I just wasn't sure when I read it that way. Like, did it mean like, oh, okay, we'll ignore these if
Be
you
liberal
want?
in your interpretation of the.
Yeah, exactly.
so, yeah, maybe use a word like generous or less restrictive.
Or, I mean,
Higher, yeah,
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 yep.
yeah.
What are you gonna use?
Higher, probably. I don't-
Yeah,
You can see that there's a considerable amount of cutting and pasting here. 'cause
sure,
it's not
sure, sure.
John's writing or mine.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would do is like, I would say, you know, the use of higher values than these minimum standards are recommended when feasible.
Any other questions or comments on those? No? Anything, John?
Just doing a quick preview, or reread.
What are you looking for tonight, Chris?
What are you looking for? We went off and did this because you asked us
Yeah.
to, so.
But are you expecting a nod of recognition that it's going in the right way? Are you looking for a formal vote that,
I don't think we're ready for a formal vote, but,
Okay.
yeah, if you want us to tweak those things we talked about and, come back with something more formal, we can do that.
okay, my only reason for asking is because we've got a lot relative to roads laid out, and so I don't want this to become an endless loop of,
Right.
we can't do the next step because we haven't finalized this.
Right.
That's the only,
So you said you wanted to run that second paragraph by legal counsel in the
Yeah,
beginning?
just to cover us on, I think it was Ben's original question, just so we're not exposing ourselves for
Yeah,
anything. We can add more to it to make it flimsier in that regard, or give us escape route. Yeah, that and the stuff on the left. So we've got a little bit on low volume
Can have for next
roads in
meeting.
here. If that's sufficient for you, then
I think so. So does anyone have any objection to anything in this, or anything, any suggested changes?
No, I think this is a good start.
Because if not, then I would say, yeah, check on those things that you wanted to run by council, and then bring us a formal copy to,
John's still reading, let's see if John has anything.
I would take out the clause if I were to here on mine, on gravel surfaces, the part I don't like.
where is
As
it?
a reading, number 15. The total usable roadway width shall be a minimum of 6.6 meters or 22 feet. I would have that Xed out.
So what are you saying within its place? Just go with,
Well, if we can make the road wider when we can, we'll make it wider.
okay, but what if there are some areas where we can't?
Then they stay the way the roads are. Because if we can't make it wider, we just can't make it wider. You know? I mean, we're not rebuilding a town road.
it's gonna push the speed limits.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's, well, that grabs a speed limit question of if the road isn't a certain width, then
Then they gotta drive slower. Sure, people won't mind that. You know, safety first.
If you were taking it out of that one, John, wouldn't you then therefore want to take it out of the others, like the asphalt surface right above it?
Well, an asphalt surface, you know, that's, again, I don't think anybody's intended yet to go and repave every single dirt road in Nottingham anytime in the near future.
Remember too, this is a standard for existing town roads. This isn't a
Right.
statement of what we're gonna do anywhere else in town. It's a desired ideal, right? Minimum. that we want to.
So when, just to bring this up, you know, how I interpret this is that if we make this our suggested minimum standards, when we have 10 miles of road to talk about, that are called emergency lanes, we put this as the standards.
Right, but they're not town roads. Engineer. You're gonna say, so we can say if our leg is 8. Need a
You're talking about legacy roads.
Yeah, I'm just,
I'm
yeah.
just throwing it out there. Who's ever listening and watching us right now, and they're gonna say, well, so.
Yeah, I would fear that in some neighborhoods, eliminate some properties, you know what I mean? Or at least eliminate somebody's front yard, you know?
Well, again, even on the town roads, up to these, we might be encroaching on their property now. Probably goes up to where we're already talking the dirt. You know, there probably isn't a buffer that's us to make this that 22 feet distance. You know, the road really might be from property line to property line, because we haven't looked at this yet on these other roads we're talking about, to fit this standard. Those might actually only be 17 feet, 18, and that's, then if we take any, or make it wider, we're encroaching on people's property. Same process might happen. So that's why, again, I don't know about the number. That's where I'm just feeling that to be in there. I mean, we want to upgrade roads, we want to re-gravel them, we want to make them safer, we want to make sure the pitch is done. I'm all for doing all that. You know, but there's gonna be cases where we can't or not. I don't wanna put a number out there that says this is where we go.
So the last sentence of that says provisions for a wider section should be considered to allow for future upgrading to an asphalt surface as recommended above. What if, John, there was an additional line that said something to the effect of exceptions may be considered in case of, I don't know what the rest of the sentence is, but, you know.
Well, I guess, yeah. Now it really depends on what you're gonna put in.
Well, I know, I always.
I understand the thought process of where you're
Yeah,
going with it. I'm not saying I disagree with that.
Yeah.
In any way,
yeah,
but,
you know.
you know, again, then the wording becomes, because anytime in the past that we sat here and, you know, all the different boards sit on, when we have something written like this and it's on there, now it becomes almost to a term where everybody looks at as
Yep.
it's black and white. Not just because it is black and white, but that's where people start interpreting it. And because of the things we have to deal with right now, some of these things, I don't want to because I don't want things to go loosey-goosey, because that's how we get into the problems. You know, I do believe in a tight format to what we're showing here, but I just don't want to set ourselves up for something that could be, you know, when we have another issue there. So I think your format, what you did was great, and I like it. But again, I'm just pointing out, and again, this, you know, spot like that was just, you know, when we go to pitch this, or if something goes to say we're gonna change a road from an EL to a class 5 road now, or a town road, you know, when it goes to a vote, I don't think it's fair if somebody from town starts pointing out this project here that we all voted for. and have a standard.
You have to
number
keep
like
in
that.
mind that this is a design standard. It is, what is it, is an engineering standard. It sets, what is a safe and maintainable width, grade, pitch, all those things. It's a design standard, and if you're worried about land ownership around the road, that's not a design standard. That's not a design to shoot for. That's a political question. And this is intended to be an engineering document. It's a design document, not a political document. And if you want to set a design standard probably needs basic dimensions. This is the standard. If you want to make political variations around that, or even engineering variations based on what you find in the field, that's fine, but as an engineering standard, that's what this is trying to do. It's not trying to capture every possible scenario. It's just this is what generations of these things tell us. To have a safe road, it's gotta be this wide, this flat, this smooth.
The opening paragraph to this, the whole document that we brought to you, it says the circumstances of topography and other physical factors may require occasional exceptions to these standards. However, the selectmen should exercise reasonable judgment before granting variations. So there's something plugged in there already in the beginning of this.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing is that, to John's point, the battle does become, when people are reading things black and white, right? If somebody does go to town meeting to try to get their road accepted. I get what you're saying, though. I'm just wondering if we need a more explicit statement.
You don't want to associate a number with that, number 15?
What I was gonna say first is, I'm wondering if that first paragraph should be a little more explicit in what this is and what it isn't, right? And,
Sort of how you just explained it, that it's
Exactly.
an engineering document, it's a design document, it's not a political document, it has nothing to do with the process of taking land or buying land, or strictly, just as you explain it in plain English, what it is, what it isn't. To make it clear for future readers who may not get the concept or the nature of a design document.
yeah, because that's not a distinction I intuitively, knew. You do, because it's what you deal with every day. Hey, Donna, number 15, what if we put a final sentence, like leave the number in there, but then put a final sentence that says, I thought it through, something that says like, a lesser width may be acceptable given land ownership or other considerations.
Yeah, that'd be better. Because again, this is not just like, this is the whole town. We don't know the widths of half the roads that I've driven all the dirt roads in town, and some of them get narrow,
Yeah,
and we just don't know, everybody's property lines and stuff like this, so you don't want to be encroaching.
Ben,
But something like that, I think would be, I'd be more comfortable with something like that.
what do you think?
Well, we gotta come up with a basic, the bare minimum. What was the sentence that you said based on?
So the last one now is provision for a wider section should be considered to allow for future upgrading to an asphalt surface as recommended above. What I'm proposing is that we follow that with a lesser width may be acceptable given land ownership or other considerations.
Well, Ledge Farm comes to mind where we have conservation land and home ownership land and on that narrow piece there, so we're making an exception there, so the same could apply for this as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think,
But it should be done on a case by case. If we have an opportunity to make the road more safe without acquiring land or, you know, encroaching on conservation land, we should obviously take that opportunity.
But those are political factors too, right? I mean, the land ownership factor is political in nature.
Well, no, it's not. It's black and white. I mean, well, it's not always black and white, but it's not political. How is it political?
If it gets to eminent domain, it would be political, but
Right.
Yeah,
Nottingham's not getting there or anything.
no, 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 no. I mean, I think I would amend my suggestion to include conservation land. I just think it, to John's point, it spells it out. It doesn't mean any much more, but it spells it out a little more clearly, particularly with the sensitivity around gravel roads. That's all.
Yeah.
You okay with that? So it says a lesser width may be acceptable given land ownership, conservation land, or other considerations,
Conservation easements.
easements.
Is that the right word for that? Conservation easements?
Yeah. All good?
But should we set a width on that, though? I mean, I don't want the road to go down to 6 feet. 6 feet wide. I mean, that's grossly
Well,
over-exaggerating, but
Yeah. Well, we address that when we do the other policies. Yeah. Kind of like a not to exceed,
fair enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Thank you.
You got it,
All right.
John?
Yeah. And I would do, like Donna suggested earlier,
Clarify.
clarify that first paragraph, just somehow make it clear what it is and what it isn't, you know?
I think you guys did a good
Just
job in this.
22
Yeah.
feet is absolute gravel.
Well, I know,
We're using 22 feet.
but you're copying.
Well, it's hard to, it's hard to create a standard where none exists already. Obviously, having good sources to go to. Nobody else around us has a road standard, then we're,
I find that really, well, I shouldn't be surprised, right? It's,
Real instruction standard.
right. So we're cutting edge.
I was just
We're
gonna say
leading the
that,
pack
that
now.
makes us a leader, huh?
That's a good thing.
Okay, what are the next steps on this?
Chris will finish the rewrites. And
I'd like to see us.
as we just discussed. And then we'll,
I was just saying, I'd like, if everything goes well, get everything ready by the next meeting. move forward.
So a vote,
to accept.
I won't be here at the next one.
I'll have you an edit to. Or,
When,
it's relatively,
if we can delay that vote till I come back, I think that would be great. But that doesn't mean we can't start, since we're all in general philosophical alignment here. What's our next step?
Then we move on to the legacy standards.
So,
Because now we have a baseline to go by.
okay. So,
This is the go by on the legacy standard. We'll continue the discussion. Go.
What's the question?
Okay, are we going on to the emergency lane topic, or are we?
all I'm trying to do is say, what are the exact next steps? What is the next thing?
Meetings ahead.
We talked about, and I thought we laid them out before. I thought we kind of laid them out. We may have adjusted, but we said we were going to do road-by-road reviews. Does that come before the policy, or does that come after the policy?
I think a little of both. There are some that we can all agree have zero benefit to the town, low-hanging fruit. You know, like I said, dead-end roads, roads with one house on them. Two of those that we can knock out fairly quickly. And then the others, the denser neighborhoods that are gonna need some. And we may have to break them up into groups, you know. Chop up the list, maybe certain, an even number of miles of road per meeting. To carve it up into workable slices so that we can get.
I'd love to see from you, rather than talk about general, we're going to do it, but I would like to see on track and
Write something up
Because
this week so we can.
we all
start.
have an idea of looking at the list of roads and stuff, and we pretty much, I hope to like to say that this board here has figured out the roads that you were talking about. You know, we already know which the one house road is that's on there, this road here, the road that has 20 houses on it.
Right, that's what I meant by the denser neighborhoods.
Right. So where do you think you're going with that conversation? You know, it's either it's gonna say, okay, this road here needs work in these 4 locations, right? Or if we did take a walk on all the roads, that whole process was done. It was marked out, given general areas. I mean, there's obviously the touch and go with different things, but to give you that, you already got the kind of the basis on it. So during this next discussion, we're really gonna basically say that, are we making a decision, say, I believe that this road can be brought up to this minimum standard and be a town road? You know, is that where we're going? Because I mean, obviously the goal here for myself, when having this discussion, is the discussion of, you know, does this road stay an emergency lane because we can't bring it up? Or is this road here close enough where it does become a class 5 road? So defining this down to real black and white is where I want to go with it.
Yeah, we can't make that decision. We can't declare a road a class 5 town road.
So we,
We don't have that authority. That only town meeting can decide that.
but at the last town meeting, when you guys were on the board, when it came up to Moore's Road, we were backtracking to, here's our standards. That's why we couldn't approve it.
That article did pass, as it was written,
pending standards.
pending standards, but it did pass. So that put it squarely on that private landowner to decide, do I want to fix up my road or not?
Logical step to try and define class 5 roads. What we just did for a step below that. Try and come to some decisions. What you need for Moore's Road. Just came to a general consensus. High roads formed.
We have to. Right.
An ownership or legal.
I mean, engineering or design?
Either one. You know, we could get our engineer to tell you, okay, here's what the state recommends for all Class 5 roads. Here's where you can cheat that back.
Offers that. Some roads we absolutely
That was a staff recommendation. You said go,
Yeah, just,
go,
again,
Yeah,
give us a
yeah.
minimum.
right.
And we got a tape measure out around one of our dump trucks, and we said, probably ought to be 16 feet wide, not be able to back up this far, and, you know, this is the tilt that we can take for the fire truck. That's where that comes from. That is what we said, the absolute minimum emergency lane. Has nothing to do with ownership. We would never suggest that that standard would be sufficient for road ownership, because you buy a whole lot of liability. The standard that we gave you in April was, what can we safely do with the equipment we have? What do we feel safe doing as an emergency lane basis? Nothing to do with road ownership. It was all about operations. This is what we think our trucks and our people should be exposed to in terms of conditions.
So are we talking about kind of standards? There's the town-owned Class 5 that we just went through. There's the legacy roads that want to become town roads. And then there's those that remain emergency lanes.
Yeah, that's a fair outcome, yeah.
That's basically.
I think that puts you in a position to meet whatever comes at you. Could this, you know, could we rebuild this road? Could this road become a Class 5 road? Could we maintain this road as an emergency? Setting aside the other tests for an emergency. Just from a design.
So can we read that our next step is that set of standards for the private roads that want to become town roads?
Yeah, I think so.
What do you think, John? You good with that?
When you said set a standard, are we talking about set a standard for emergency lanes that want to become town roads?
No, for private roads,
Some of which would be emergency.
some of which are emergency lanes, and there are others that are not. But they would apply to emergency lanes, yes.
No, what I just said was that there's three standards.
There's a lesser standard
Right,
for ownership.
yeah,
All right, there's a greater standard for ownership than there is for emergency lane
correct.
maintenance.
Right, right.
Do you know offhand how many private lanes we have in town?
I mean, named,
How many miles of private roads?
11 and something, 11 or 12.
You know, you classifying those with the emergency lanes? Or is
Yes.
it 10 mile, right, so again, that's where I want to be clear with people that are listening. When you guys use the term private roads, people out there are referring to these as emergency lanes. So when we decipher, when you say private roads, you can't just leave, you have to say emergency lanes.
No,
Well,
because
we
not,
classified them as emergency lanes. They're
While-
listed and classified.
every emergency lane is by nature a private road. Not all private roads are emergency lanes.
That's why you need to refer to them as emergency lanes, when we're talking about emergency lanes.
You know, because if there's 2 miles of real private roads,
They're all private roads,
again, classification,
yeah.
we've classified them as emergency lanes, not as private road, they are classified as emergency lanes. When you look up, it says emergency lanes. So I just wanted to be clear to the folks that we are talking about, a private road is somebody that owns the road, you know, I mean, you can, we know what a private road is, and we, you know, there's a difference, we've already set a distance, because in 1995, we set the difference between private road and emergency lanes. So I just wanted to be clear that when we do list this, we do speak it.
An emergency lane is a designation.
I know, but we.
Not a type of road.
Classification is a
We designated
legislative
them
term.
as emergency lanes.
Right, so if you want to be really picky even about your language, a classification is a legislative standard, it's in law. Designation is another standard in law, that an emergency lane has been designated.
Yep.
It doesn't have its own class like 6, 7, 8, it's,
Correct.
Right.
it has no class. Just like all of our private roads have no classification.
See, we don't have class.
Yeah, but we don't do anything on a private road now.
Unless it's designated as an emergency lane.
Correct. So this.
She's just saying, be careful with the
Well,
labeling.
There's a whole thing.
No,
You know,
I gotcha.
When we start talking about this, we're talking about maintenance. You know, plowing roads, that still goes, you know, we don't do nothing on a private road.
All right, John, what do you want the next step to be?
Well, just got over that one. You know, again, just moving forward to where we're gonna go to clarify to people.
I want everybody to say what they want specifically the next step to be, so that when we come into the next meeting, we know exactly what we're doing.
All right, give me a minute.
Okay. And Ben, I want to hear what you say too. I just,
Well, I mean, if we're gonna come up with 3 separate standards, as you originally said, then we need to work on the next chunk, and that would be the private roads who want to become town roads. But with that being said, there are gonna be some of those roads that are gonna be designated ELs as well.
and then the EL clarification is something we'll
So-
do as the next step.
Yeah.
Sorry, just looking up things. Feel free if anyone else wants to bring something up.
If that's where you send us off to go, and I need you weigh on this too, I think what we would do would be to take this to our engineers and say, where can we be different on this without making great safety sacrifices in order to make this more achievable for roads that already exist? And, you know, where can we reasonably pull these back for very low volume, very low speed roads? What's a qualifier for
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
this,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We're
yeah.
all on the same page there.
Yeah.
Very low speed, very low traffic roads. Where can we shave these back to make it more achievable without exposing the town to long-term liabilities? That's the framework that I would say that you want to give to us to go do. Is there anything we should add to that? No. Before, okay, so if that's where I would go unless you tell me to do otherwise.
No, it's logical.
Yep.
What do you think, John?
No, I'm with you, I understand where you're going.
I just don't want to waste, I don't want to waste time and engineer's
absolutely.
time and your
Yeah,
time.
no,
Yep,
go for it.
You know, again, I apologize, I have to travel for work on the 4th. If you guys are interested in keeping moving, I'm happy to meet on the 11th.
11th, I'm out of town.
Okay.
I don't know what this is not gonna be as fast a turnaround, because we're gonna need our
Okay,
engineers,
fine.
so, we'll get with them and see what they have time-wise and what they think it's gonna take, and then we'll give you
To
some,
review this.
no, to shave this to the next level of standards.
Okay.
They know this document already, this is the state DOT standard thing. We'll hand it to them and say, let's sit down and talk about what we can do to make this easier to achieve without costing ourselves a ton of money in the long run. And have them talk us through what can we do around grades, widths, bases, rights of way, those kinds of things. That's where making it achievable comes from.
Well, how much time do you think you need to do that?
After Thanksgiving. It's just a lot of work.
It's,
Okay, all right.
yeah,
All right,
yeah, we're in December, certainly, and we're already, we got our engineer redlined on Ledge Farm already, so.
okay, fine. Okay,
I know this, it's a big hurdle, but,
nope,
you
that's,
know,
Yeah.
that's fair.
and I don't think we ought to try and do that without their help,
No,
no. And we can talk to T-Square too and see if UNH's road, cooperative extension for roads, is UNH T-Square. We'll see if maybe they get up with it too.
Okay. What's on the agenda for the 4th, Chris?
Tax deed waivers for one.
Oh, yeah, right. And then the 18th, we have the budget. Okay,
You're not gonna get away from budget from here out, so,
yep.
tax deed waiver is the only thing on the 4th so far.
Okay, so the next time we're going to discuss road standards is after Thanksgiving. Okay. Do we need to do any homework or discussions or education around betterment assessments and what we should just kind of like be aware of if that's a path that gets considered?
Well, you already sent us some NHMA writings on that. The writings cite the any applicable RSA.
Yeah, no,
so-
you've got enough to educate yourself. I'm just thinking
Okay.
through the calendar.
Yep.
If you're thinking about March, I think it's pretty aggressive, given that we don't even have a standard yet. Because you go from a standard to identifying potential targets for that process, to pricing it, to public hearings, to all, that's,
Yeah, well,
there's a compression in there that we,
well, I don't know that we would be far enough along for anybody to actually petition town meeting to have a road accepted
We've got one already, right?
yeah.
from last year.
No, we got a new
Oh,
one.
okay,
Brand
okay,
new one,
okay, right.
That's completely independent of a betterment assessment process. That's just a straight up,
Okay, all
Accepted.
I was trying to get at is, you guys have your next step clear. We know it's not gonna be till after Thanksgiving. All I was doing is looking at the meeting of the 18th and saying, what else, is there anything else we should be doing at that meeting to keep this process moving along? Or to keep this whole thing moving along?
well, you could, if you wanted to, you could start thinking about those roads that, maybe you've identified some that are not gonna be candidates for class 5. And maybe shouldn't be candidates for emergency lane designation. You could work from the bottom up and the top down at the same time. But you probably want to tell the residents on that road, this is what it's going to take to be a class 5 road or to be an emergency lane, and you're not in a position to do that yet. So,
Correct, yeah,
In terms of standards,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
yeah,
right,
yeah.
just to be consistent about it
Right,
from a design and conditions point of view.
right.
Well, and there's still an expectation that people will have the opportunity to come in and discuss their road individually.
Yeah. And of course, from neighborhood to neighborhood, road to road, what it's gonna take to meet that standard is gonna be different. So it's gonna be different for every neighborhood, is what I'm getting at.
I don't, what do you mean?
what it's gonna take to meet a
what
standard.
it's gonna take to meet.
Standard won't be different, but what it takes to
Oh,
meet
fine,
that standard
fine,
would
fine.
probably be different in
Yeah, yeah.
different places,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So are we or are we not looking to formalize and approve the Class 5?
Next week,
Yes.
Okay.
Next week.
Well, yeah.
if you're ready. Yeah.
Well, since there isn't anything that we can do on it, I mean, I think we're all in philosophical agreement. Chris has some changes to make.
Yeah.
Can we delay the vote on it till the 18th? Are you comfortable with that? Given that there's not much else that's gonna happen between now and then.
Are we going to be, I mean, I could see ourselves, we're gonna get down to crunch time.
Yeah,
I'm okay with going with the 18th as long as we're continuously moving forward and coming up with everything that needs to be done by March 1st.
Well, that's why I was asking about what can be done in the next, the next thing is, from them isn't gonna come until after Thanksgiving anyway. So whether we vote on that on the 4th or the 18th, doesn't really matter,
Doesn't
right?
matter. So I'm okay with the 18th.
Okay.
John?
sure. Okay.
You're talking like a Robert, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Is that it for roads?
I believe that's it for roads for
So
tonight.
I just want,
But not highway.
No, but, yeah, not
That's it for road standards.
road standards. Next up, DPW planning.
Okay. So we are coming into CIP, we're coming into budget season. We are coming into Sean's first go at a budget. And he's now had a few months of uninterrupted time to get his head around things. And we wanted to do two things. It's going to be about 50 things, but two key things. Bring you up to speed on all of the things we're juggling around Public Works. You've got a huge list in front of you. This is what's on Sean's plate with me chuckling in the background. So kind of touch on all of that stuff and make sure you're aware of it, or get into any details you want to on some of them. And second, if there's any guidance from you before we go into CIP and a final budget development, it would be good for us to hear that now, so we're not doing it late in the game. These are, in my last budget recap, I kind of went through all the other departments and said, this is what's on the radar. I couldn't do that with Public Works because we have so much that we need to slot and figure out what's a
Yeah.
priority for you and what's a priority for us, and this is admittedly a bit of a brain dump, but the decisions now spill over to subsequent years, so that's why we kind of have to start talking about these things. Is that a fair setup?
That is a fair setup.
And I got a couple edits and a couple things I forgot after Sean and I spent a morning doing this, so I'm gonna add those on the fly. Before we get into that, you wanted an update on where we are with Ledge Farm, and I said Sean can do that.
Alrighty, so
Why don't we do that?
Let's do that.
Ledge Farm, they spent a week removing ledge, but the pounder or the ledge removal machine's gonna come back, because today they found ledge that they had missed, and they found it up by the Ledge Farm house itself. There was a pretty big outcrop of it, so they thought they had got it, and what was left was shaly, and they could peel it, but they can't. So that's gonna continue. Approximately 240 yards of ledge have been removed as of now during this project. We had a 400 cubic yard line item in the bid, so we're all set with that right now. The box out, the majority of the box out down on the lower level is done.
What's a box out?
Explain that, yeah.
All the box out is simply they're excavating the material, the gravels that are in the road now, and then replacing them with suitable materials. So taking a foot to 15 inches out, depending on what the cut is. So there's a lot of cut and fills that are going on to take the steepness of that slope out of there. And so that's what they're doing, and that would be down towards where the dry hydrant is, and they've worked up. They're just about done in the sections that they had to box out down there. They're back at the top of the hill this morning, doing the box out, and discovered more lead. So they'll be bringing that machine in, hopefully it'll be back tomorrow, if not Wednesday, and continuing that. They're not stuck completely, there's other things that they're gonna be doing. With the anticipation of getting the base coat down the week of November 18th.
Are we on schedule?
Right now, yes.
And if I recall, we're not paving this year, right?
We are putting a winter base coat down, it won't be topped this year.
Okay, all right.
All the material that's coming out of the ledge cuts, is that being used as fill in other places, or is it
Yes, it's
not?
going over to Marston's field, with the project baseball field,
Okay.
so that's going over there.
So they're not hauling it away and disposing of it, or?
No, and
We're
if they
getting
were,
used
we were gonna get, we got some of it in the beginning anyways, until they called the contractor at the field called and requested that material, so.
We had a shortfall. Remember, I talked about the fact that there was a shortfall on fill over there. We thought we were gonna have to put a little more money towards that, taking it away from other areas. And that's one of the things that they did, was started bringing stuff over there. So,
So that's working out.
Yep.
And that'll continue for as long as they're there and need the material. So that's pretty much what's going on.
how's the, the road closing going and traffic management and all
Sometimes
that?
at the end of the night, if it's not open exactly at 4 PM, somebody's always saying, well, we're supposed to be open at 4 and it's 4:05, but that's only because of how the day's going, why it doesn't get open, but it's majority, everything's been fine. It's been,
Yeah, they've heard it in the field. We haven't heard it in the office. Nothing's reached that level. Not that somebody hasn't been inconvenienced, but it was
Yeah,
5
yeah,
minutes
yeah,
now,
yeah.
but.
We'll get flooded with phone calls tomorrow.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that.
no, it's been good, people have been, very understanding and stuff, the contractor's working well with others, so it's going well. As can be expected for what we're up against for the conditions out there on that road.
Yeah, they found some organic mess in a place they weren't expecting to today. That
Yeah,
Organic?
They just filled that,
they built the road over the swamp, between the driveway for the ledge farm itself and where that standing water is, right through there. So there was an over excavation done in there, we brought in some materials that we had from the pit, some of our tailings from screening sand over the years, and it was a great base material to fill in, to bring that up and stabilize that.
last thing you want to see is
So-
Brown looking down in the hole, so.
Yeah.
Just the Ledge Farm is still on budget.
We got a pay rack coming in, it should be tomorrow, Wednesday will be submitted. Right now, yeah, the numbers, we've been tallying the numbers, we're not,
We're on budget for what we thought it was gonna be and what it posted cost, we're on budget.
For this
Right.
phase.
Well, that's, yeah, what we, just wanna make sure that we're still,
yes, right now we are on
because,
budget.
you asked, they're bringing back the rock crusher thing, and you know,
But that, we're covered with that, like I said, in that line item for ledge removal at 400 yards. We're actually trying to save money on the project with that line item. That's an expensive line item on there.
Yeah, this isn't a time and materials job, this is the deliverable with this much allowance for ledge. Do we have any other allowances in there? That's the big one.
That's a big one. is
Yeah,
ledge.
so,
That 400 yards of ledge that you had mentioned?
Yeah, and we're about 200, we've done about 230, 240 as of today that was removed.
Is there more, you think, or?
Yes, they ran into it today.
Oh,
So they're gonna bring back the machine, they're gonna pound it out. Those calculations haven't been determined yet on what the removal is, what the amount is. I do not see it exceeding 400 yards at all.
How do they determine that? Just the cubic yardage of the dump trucks they
Right,
fill?
height, width, we take some shots with the rod, that nature there, station it off at station 20650, measure it off as far as what the width, what the length, we take a rod shot, top and bottom.
He's been doing most of that, instead of paying our engineer to come out and do it.
Yeah.
You're out there a lot of mornings doing those, right? They expose
Yeah.
it, and then you measure it, and you measure it at the end when it's done, and subtract one from the other. I say that, I wouldn't know how to do it, but
I mean, either.
that's how it works.
Sounds easy.
All right, is that good for,
Yes.
through today on Ledge Farm?
Thank you, Sean.
All right, I'm gonna go again, and you, again, interrupt me if I miss anything or screw anything up. So Ledge Farm remains our top priority. It's still our busiest gravel road. We still have a big chunk of it left to do. We're gonna spend about $325,000 this year on this phase that gets us down toward the dry hydrant. 200 of that came from a pretty typical road reconstruction warrant article. We have had that same warrant article in the town meeting for a long time at about that dollar amount. Town meeting amended it this year to say it had to be used on Ledge Farm. Not gonna have any trouble with that. But that same warrant article has appeared every year for as long as I know. We pick a major project and vote on it separately. We also are pulling money out of a few, we set some aside last year, and then remember in December of last year, we encumbered some money for the engineering on this project.
Right.
We're anticipating using some of our famous shim and seal coat line this year. We have shuffled a lot of shells around to get to this phase one cost, to get something big enough that it was worth doing the job, and that was 325. We have not finished the engineering on the remainder. We're through the hardest part, or at least come November, we'll be through the hardest part, both from an engineering and a reconstruction point of view, but we do still have 3,000 feet, and we got a lot left. We've not done the final engineering on that. We've done preliminary engineering, we don't have the final engineering done on that. We think we have something like 600 to 650,000 left to get to the Epping town line from where we leave off in November. And we've been kicking around ways that we can get there. At 6 to 650, if we just do a $200,000 a year warrant article, we got three plus years of work left, and it's really inefficient. We're gonna be supervising the job 4 times, bidding the job,
Yep.
or 3 times, or
Yep.
bidding the job 3 times. You lose any economy of scale. So, one of the things we'd like to consider is accelerating that, to at no more than 2 years, and perhaps even bang it out in 2020 by really throwing everything we've got at it to get it behind us.
Do you think that's I mean, I understand where we're going on this, but, again, throwing it and doing it out for, you're talking about $600,000 to finish the project.
Yeah.
So, with our new reval that's coming out to all our properties in Nottingham, and the chances of the property taxes, or the people's values are gonna go up, which means their taxes are going up, most likely, you think it's good to punch a $500,000 or more, $600,000 project on them for next year? Or the year after?
Revaluation doesn't affect the tax bill. Overall, it just divvies up the taxes, so.
Right, but people's
I'm
taxes
not
are
gonna give
going
you a
up.
lesson on that, you understand that.
Yeah, I see.
But the reval, the reval does not change a tax bill in and of itself. It's not spending, it's a redistribution, so. I
It's
hear
still-
you politically, but
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, though, people, when their house jumps up $100,000 because they got reevaluated.
their tax rate's gonna go down at the same time, and you know that, but they're kind of 2 separate things. They're gonna happen, they're both gonna happen. We're gonna fix Ledge Farm and we're gonna reval. Yes, we doing it all at once is not something we would trifle with.
Can I ask a question, though?
Yeah.
The way you've got it worded, you've said, so the current warrant article is 200K. What you're saying is increase the warrant article to 300K, and then use the shim and seal coat, 300K, which it's at 300K. So the net difference would be 100K.
Two different options.
Well, the way you got it worded there was just,
Option 2, go from 200 to 300 in the warrant article.
but
break- and-
option 3 says the same thing, right?
Yeah, so there's option 2,
Yep,
go from 200 to 300,
takes 2 years.
takes 2 years.
Yep,
That's then done.
yep.
Okay? The thinking there is in terms of tax impact, we had Marston last year for 100,000, so if we, all else being equal,
Yeah,
we don't, yes, you pay it, but it doesn't feel like as
it's
much.
still 100K difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Option 3 is to do option 2,
yeah,
plus use
right.
our operating budget funds.
But don't we already budget 300K for shim and seal coat?
Yes, and what
Okay.
we're suggesting is that we use that money.
I understand.
Redirecting it, yeah.
So all I'm saying is to the tax question, it's really still that 100K difference, because,
For option 3.
for option 3. Because.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not like saying,
Well,
it's,
what if we use the 300 from the shim and seal coat line? What are we doing for any other, we're not gonna do any other roads in town, nothing?
That's the trade-off.
that's correct, yeah.
Yeah. The other asphalt. Yeah, this is what we typically do with the shim and seal coat line.
But remember our road surface study, I mean, our asphalt roads are in reasonably good shape. So we could probably absorb that year of diminished maintenance without any
I
harmful
wasn't
side
on the-
effects.
It'll cost
I
us
wasn't on the
something,
board for
and-
the asphalt study, I know about it, but I wasn't here for that.
But
Oh, he has it,
Oh, I know, I seen it.
okay.
Just thinking I just wasn't here.
the thinking is not that we not do that maintenance, is that we take all of the ledge farm work from 20 and 21 and we cram it into 20, and we take all of the asphalt work, other asphalt work from 20 and 21 and cram it into 21. So we have a big catch-up year in 21 on asphalt maintenance, everything that we would do next year. It's, the ledge farm project, it can really bog us down and it's gonna consume a lot, but if we can just get it done and get it behind us, it becomes the project for the year. We can do it either way. We might do better pricing wise if we did it all at once.
Correct.
How much do you think we might save if we crammed it all in 1 year in ledge farm versus breaking it up over 2 or maybe 3 years?
I don't, escalating oil prices and things of that nature are gonna drive the hot top line, which would be the most expensive thing, which will trickle down as far as cost of pavement, but, fuel for equipment and stuff, so I really don't have a number. Obviously, it's gonna go higher each year, inflation kicks in, so what it is, the actual number, I don't know.
And the mobilization cost and
Yeah.
the soft costs.
3 deployments versus 1 deployment.
The
you-
disruption to the user, that there's a
Yeah.
cost there that we don't feel, but,
I understand John's concern, but do you get a sense that maybe the other board members can weigh in here, that maybe the town can stomach a warrant article specifically to finish Ledge Farm Road?
well, we've already offered the voters the opportunity to borrow 600,000 to do Ledge Farm.
Yeah.
That didn't make it.
Right, but the hard part's been done now. I'm thinking it might be an easier sell now, where the remaining part of it could,
But, so, maybe I'm missing the point, but we wouldn't really be going to them and saying, we want 600,000 to do this.
well,
We would be going and saying, okay, we normally ask for 200,000, this year we're gonna ask for 300,000, and we're gonna redirect this 300,000 that we normally spend here over to Ledge Farm.
I don't,
I understand them doing it that way, I mean, it makes it look a hell of a lot better.
Well, it's true, am I
No.
simplifying it?
No, that's exactly what we're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
No, again, I didn't.
doesn't make it
I'm
any-
not,
yeah.
I'm not knocking the process, I'm saying
Yeah.
it does make it look better than trying to pitch an article of
well, it doesn't make it
600,000.
look better, it makes it look
Right.
what it is.
Again, but right, again.
Yeah,
but
I know,
When
I
you,
understand.
if somebody else looks at this number, and you see that we just spent $1 million on Ledge Farm Road,
But when you share the
just,
budget warrant article numbers year over year,
Sure.
they won't be.
No, I can defend the cause of what
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
doing, and I understand how it works in the process. I'm just saying, but when you got somebody just saying out front that says, "Oh my God, we just spent $1 million on Ledge Farm Road," that's what they say. You know, they don't say, "Well, wow, the town did it a real reasonably and feasible way that made it," you know.
What did we spend on Lakeview?
I don't know. I wasn't here. I wasn't on the board.
400, 450?
For all that? They did a lot of work on that road.
I don't know, I had to go back and look, but it wasn't 6,
No?
no think. It was 2 years' worth of highway budget.
Okay, all right.
Blasting and engineering and,
No,
No?
no blasting.
there was no blasting?
Well, maybe they chipped away at some stuff, but they hammered, but they didn't blast.
No, again, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to any of what we're
That was
talking
not
about
a,
right
that
now.
was not an
I'm just
engineered job.
playing devil's advocate of throwing out, because, you know, we gotta get it passed.
I just,
If we saw support.
I'm just concerned that come 2021, I mean, we put off every other road. I mean, we
It's-
are
it's
in
a
great
trade-off,
shape
isn't
right
it?
now. I think the only one that's really bad is getting taken care of this year, if I'm correct, right? Off of South
Well, this year, we're doing Canton Court and South Summer.
Yeah.
The next ones will be Swan, Fort Hill, Robin Hood.
Yes.
This year?
No.
Next year.
That, well, it depends. It's 20 or 21, depending on how we approach.
So what else is slated for 2021?
It's all lesser stuff. It's overlays and it's not full-blown reconstructions or maybe not even reclamations.
No, there's some mill and shim, mill and fills, they call them. There's some crack sealing.
Yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
lesser maintenance than.
But we've already pulled back on this year's to accommodate Ledge Farm, so we're already drifted back a little bit. We were able to absorb it. I mean, we were supposed to pave Garrish Road, we pulled that back.
Yeah. Yeah, Garrish is on the radar too, but,
And that's gonna be fine, but that's something we pulled back.
Sean, can it all realistically be done in 1 year?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we go out to bid for the rest of that in February or March and start it in May or June and get it done in summer.
yeah. So we don't need that decision today, but that, you know, that's a budget time decision. Do we ask for more at all? And if so, do we apply our operating budget?
Well, going with what Donna had said, it sounds to me we're only talking about money's money, I get it. It's $100,000. Yeah, that's a easier pill to swallow than 600, for sure. I'd be more support, you know, based on if we can get everything done in 2021 that was put off, I would support.
Yeah, we would basically rejigger that road surface management study to, you know, start over in '21. You know, we would drive around and say, okay, we gotta move this one up, move this one back.
Okay.
It also has the net effect of moving that annual project number up.
Yeah. Which it probably should be anyway.
We're not gonna have any trouble finding a use for it,
Yep.
certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you understand the question anyway, I don't need
Yep.
an answer,
Yes.
but.
Yep, yep.
Yes.
Dovetailing with that, you have seen us in December oftentimes come to you and say, we're gonna have unspent money for the calendar year, for the budget year. We have to, we do every year, we can't go over budgets, we always
Yeah.
have leftover funds. And we often, in December, go through an exercise of saying, okay, we are gonna ask for this next year, next year's budget, you wanna just buy it now and take it out of the budget, use this year's money, and make next year's budget a little bit smaller, right? We've done that with things that were not for whimsical things, but things that you knew you were gonna have to buy the following year, get it into service sooner and shrink the budget a little bit. We have a lot of variables coming into December of this year, where we could be pretty aggressive in that process. We have leftover SB 38 money, which is that highway appropriation from 2 years ago. We have the 42,000 the legislature just dropped on you for 2019. We have perhaps leftover shim and seal coat monies from 19, depending on how Ledge Farm comes out. Remember, we had some wild card there. Ledge Farm, Canton Court, South Summer, depending how those all flush out, we could have a considerable amount of unspent money that is within your grasp if you choose to grasp it. We can, I don't want to look like we're playing shell games, but we can use some of that unspent money on Ledge Farm to make that impact lesser in the future. It's still coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. It's basically taking it out, the net effect is that you're taking it out of the fund balance. Really, when it comes down to it, like if you don't use that special revenue from the.
Then it goes to the fund
It
balance.
falls to the fund balance. Just like you would be taking money out to pay down the tax rate.
Yeah.
Right, same
Yep.
concept.
Yep.
We can be pretty aggressive in shuffling the way we pay for things around to ease that burden of Ledge Farm next year, if you want us to. And we'll have to explain to you what we're doing, and,
Yeah.
you know, it'll be legal, but
How do you
It
do
just-
that with Ledge Farm, given that that kind of a decision wouldn't be made till like December, and at that point, you're past anything else you can do there?
I haven't thought through all the little variables of it, but generally speaking, a capital project warrant article doesn't lapse if the project isn't complete. So we could pay 2019 bills with other money, use a 2019 warrant article in 2020.
I see.
Just
other-
by default, a capital
bills.
project, yes, other funds, whether it's unspent police, fire, and recreation money, or whatever, or other highway
Oh, I
money.
see, so you use that to pay for the work that's being done now.
Exactly.
I got it.
That's money that would otherwise fall to the fund balance.
Got it.
Another option along those lines is you're probably, we don't know yet, but you're probably coming into town meeting 2020 with a larger fund balance than you have right now. You could ask town meeting to dip into the fund balance to pay for some of Ledge Farm, just like you did with the excavator last year. Same decision, different decision maker, right?
Do you have other than, you said the remaining balance of highway fund and then the 42 that dropped, how much do you think are we possibly, maybe, I know it's preliminary, but
Well, those two together are, right now, are between 55 and 60
okay.
ballpark.
Is that gonna make much of an impact on Ledge Farm?
Well, if there's 55 or 60, what if we found another 55 or 60 in other parts of the operating budget? And you start stacking those things up, they can make a difference. And we're actually gonna come back and propose other spending that's gonna muck up that
Yep.
thought process, but if you want us to be aggressive like that, we can do that. Or we can-
It's a mechanism for trying to smooth out the budget impact, essentially.
Yeah, you have to buy into the fact that we're gonna fix Ledge Farm,
Yep.
and this is just the smoothest way to do it. If you're not convinced that you wanna spend that money on Ledge Farm, then we shouldn't do those kinds of things, but, it does have a smoothing effect, and frankly, a political effect of making the decisions easier come March for spending. So, I can't put numbers on it, I can just tell you that if you want us to find a way to do that kind of thing, we can do that. And we'll get into other things here that we're gonna wanna spend that money on too, so it may not matter, but. I think that's it on Ledge Farm. Anything else you
Yes.
wanna weigh in on that,
Nope.
the cram it into 1 year theory?
Cram it into 1 year theory makes sense on my part.
Yeah.
They give us time to really focus in 2021 and go right at the roads, what we already have fell behind on now.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Other major projects. This is more the CIP mindset, multi-year, large-scale project things that are on our radar. There's not much new here.
What does WAG stand for, just to be clear?
Wild
Yes.
guess.
That, I'm happy it's not a real technical term, because
I can't believe you didn't know that.
well, I didn't know if it was gonna be on this paper, so I was just kinda guessing it, but okay. Cause it did seem, I don't know, kinda culvert, makes me wanna go drive down that road and see how big it is. Sounds like a bridge.
So, nothing on this is new in a CIP sense. These concepts have been floating around for a long time. They are slowly getting kicked down the road as we do things like Ledge Farm, but,
Yeah.
our biggest worry is the culvert on Kelsey Road right by the Lee Town line. You may know that, it's pretty narrow, it's got mangled guardrails, bottoms rusted
Bottom's
out.
going on the culvert itself.
Yes. That is a big enough project, it may turn from a culvert into a bridge.
The head walls failed, you can't attach guardrail to it.
Yeah. So, that turns into wetlands permitting and long engineered process. Fortunately, it also opens up grant opportunities with state
Yeah.
bridge aid, so, our intention would be to apply for a grant next year, with 4 or 5 year lead time on those,
Yeah.
but an 80-20 match, so.
What do you do about the guardrails in the meantime?
We'll apply for the grant, the state's gonna come in and evaluate the culvert, make recommendations. They may make some recommendations that we would have to fix immediately,
Okay.
like doing something, and that would be probably putting up some concrete barriers along where the guardrail has failed out there, and then securing that area that way. What that does at that time, though, is shrinks that down to one
One lane?
lane.
What road is that, I'm sorry?
Kelsey. So we don't wanna pay the whole thing ourselves if we can get the state to do that. It becomes a race of can we get in the pipeline, the grant pipeline in time?
Yeah.
And it's not, there isn't really a quick and dirty option on this one. This is full permitting.
Yeah.
There's no send the boys out and buy the biggest culvert you can find and put 2 of them next to each other and, you know,
No, the
There's-
road's gonna get straightened out a little bit, too.
yeah, this is there's no cutting corners on this one. But what is that? Is that a river? What is that carrying through there? Gotta be a river.
Yeah.
It's one of the named rivers. It's, you know,
I don't know what the name of it is.
yeah. Anyway,
It's got beavers in it.
yeah, used to.
Got what?
Beavers.
Here we go.
Okay, so that is not something we're gonna do, we're gonna do the grant and the, you know, that stuff, and
Yeah.
then start preparing for that cost down the road. 2021 is perhaps that catch-up year on the asphalt maintenance, depending on what we do with Ledge Farm. And so these tend to leak depending on which path we choose on Ledge Farm, how fast we finish Ledge Farm, and, but this is the general order of priorities. 21 and 22 would be the Nottingham Lake, Fort Hill Swan, Robin Hood. 22 to 24 is flexible. Either we're doing a lot of asphalt maintenance or we are paving additional gravel. The top of our list at this point is probably Mitchell, but 3 years from now, we may want to reevaluate that. Construction over there will have wrapped up by then on Maple Ridge. We've had some tire kicking around Mitchell on other development. On the west end of Mitchell can't handle a lot more. That's the dip coming up into
Correct.
the intersection,
Yeah.
right? That's our priority there.
Yes.
That length of Mitchell in particular is probably next on our priority list. And then a little bit less as you move back toward the Lee line. Is that fair?
Fair enough.
Yeah. Kelsey Road Culvert, and then we're out, beyond that, we're out 6, 7 years, so who knows, but, Berry Road, still runs through a swamp. Someday we're gonna have to deal with Berry Road. It's been on the list for years. Probably within 5 or 6 years, we develop some other major priority around a bridge or something else, but that is the lay of the land on major road projects.
Yes.
Anything else to?
No.
No. Well, I forgot to put in here, and I guess it would go here, is guardrail. Sean mentioned guardrail on Kelsey. We've got major issues on McCrillis. You're familiar with that long run of guardrail along there?
Along the river?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
You wanna fill in 3 sentences on that?
Yeah, I got an estimate for that repair, there. That won't stop a vehicle from going in.
Wow.
That repair is $21,500.
How long has that guardrail been there?
I don't have the answer.
Probably since the bridge was replaced. That was
Mother's Day floods?
Yeah.
Day flood.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
2006.
And how much of that is damage and how much of it is design or installation or just general age of what's your guess on that?
So, it's the age of
Somebody's
it.
been bouncing along off it,
Well, a couple of times, what's
Yeah.
happened is they're taking the supports, it's supported into the concrete head wall, and those have been ripped right out, so there's free-floating posts in certain strategic spots that need to be replaced. The ribbon's flattened right out, so it has no more cushion for a car when it hits it or anything. That also diminishes the strength of the guardrail. There's blunt ends, there's no buffers, and that corner that you come into that is extremely sharp.
What's the lifespan of a guardrail if it's,
Not hit?
yeah, and if it's, well, there's that, but if it's, assuming it's not hit, given that it's properly designed and installed?
50 years.
Okay. So it's just a matter of how many times it gets hit?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it can be hit, I mean, it's meant to take a car running into it, but you gotta replace it and make repairs, and
So that's all I was trying to figure out, because if it's 50 years, but this has been 2006, which is
13.
I don't know
13
how many-
years. Is
how
it
many
just-
cars have hit
It's the
that.
hazard of the spot that it's in.
that
Well,
would
no,
also.
how many cars have hit it and the steel hasn't been replaced?
Right,
The
there's
idea
that.
is that
Oh,
And-
that you sacrifice the steel with any 1 or 2
but the
incidents.
steel has not been replaced.
Yeah, we should try to be absorbing the cost for these repairs through insurance claims with the people getting in accidents and hit them as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
No, they may have, we don't see a lot of evidence of it.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Well, that's something we can do,
With the guardrail repair out there,
pursuing the insurance claims against the people that
right, we
damaged
would
the
have to
rails.
start that process.
Can't reach
I've
back
already
now.
asked about
Yeah.
that. There's no document or information on that.
Yeah.
If you're driving a dump truck and you slice one of those, yeah, the truck keeps going, puts a nice dent in it. There's no insurance claim on that. Just keep driving down.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
that's the worst of the guardrail. We have Kelsey, we have that. Anything else that's,
No, that's
No.
that for that.
yeah, I think you'll probably see us start to build something in the operating budget around guardrails. Just an ongoing.
There's a lot of guardrail maintenance that's needed out there, but this particular spot's critical.
Okay, anything else on projects? We drift along to vehicles. Our thinking is that we got the capital reserve appropriation up to 100,000 a year. That should be sufficient with a couple of qualifiers. This says anticipate utility took purchase in 20. I think we're thinking 21 for that rather than 20, so that's a typo on me. No vehicle purchases in 20. Probably a utility truck in 21.
Have we really identified a need for it?
We got a year and a half to decide, and the stuff.
What
that
is
we're
a
gonna-
utility truck?
It could either be a 350 pickup truck like the beat-up one we have, or a 550 one and a half like
It'd
the
be a
one-
350 four-wheel drive truck with a plow on it, with toolbox, utility toolbox in the back, which is regular, it's a different box, it's got side doors, you open it to get the tools out instead of climbing into the truck or mounting. The boxes like are on that truck currently have in that nature.
And what are the tools that we'd be keeping in there? Typically chainsaws or something?
What is chainsaw, there's hand tools for sign replacement, hammers, wrenches, putting the fuel tank in there.
Stuff they wouldn't need to go back to the shop and
Right. There's, you
just
know,
grab it out of the truck while you're on a job site or something,
So the truck's gonna go to every job site?
theoretically.
Yeah, we have one now that's what year is that?
2012, isn't it? That 350?
yeah,
Sounds about right, yeah.
yeah. And that had a regular pickup body on it that rotted out or something, and they replaced it, and it was built in-house with that metal
Yeah.
flatbed that's on it now.
The loader, probably, this is a 21, 22, I get my years off here, 21, 22 in all likelihood. One of those things, we need to own one, we just don't know how long the one we have is gonna last. That is that 15 years old now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sean, are you, Chris, when we came up with the plans for life expectancy on these, are you in agreement with those?
The life expectancies, I think that they could probably go, you could probably get that and maybe some more if they had a place
Better
to
maintenance?
wash. It's all about the salt that's
Yeah.
doing them in.
Okay.
It's the inability to properly clean them, and that's nothing to, no part of any employee.
No, no,
It's
no,
just
no,
not
I'm not
that,
saying that, yeah.
give them the right setup.
Okay, rolling on, so you look a little bit further over the horizon, and this is a concept that we've talked about for a long time, is reducing the fleet size, particularly around dump trucks. If we had sufficient winter plowing contractors, we could live with 3 dump trucks year-round instead of the 4 we own right now.
So essentially, you're thinking we're trading one for the other. We're getting a utility body and we'll eliminate a dump truck at some point.
Well, hopefully, the dump truck will last longer than that, but,
Would the utility body that we're talking about have a plowing?
Yes.
Okay, just wanna
yep.
keep as many uses out of it as possible.
That'll come with a
Absolutely,
sander.
I agree with you.
That would come with a sander too, right?
Tough to fit, wouldn't it?
No,
Yeah,
you can fit one in there, depending on what size, but.
I honestly didn't entertain that.
We got a year on that decision.
Right.
Right.
There may be scenarios where we could contract grading services. We have owned and paid for that grader a few times over. There are private firms even in town with better graders than we have, so, Talco's got one. There may be another one too, didn't we?
No, Talco's got,
Talco's got one,
Yeah.
for sure. Not a decision we have to make right now, but it's worth considering.
And we would see significant savings with that versus buying another one.
We'll have to evaluate that, but, I mean.
So,
what
but
they
we
do-
use, we use the.
Running it, I'm sorry,
400
just one second. A grader has been on the CIP for probably 10 years now. I'm not kidding, I mean, I was on the CIP, I don't know, 8 years ago, and it was a forecasted, which just keeps getting pushed and pushed every year out a little further. But it's always been something, you know, compared to how many town roads we have. I mean, when we do evaluate that, get closer to that, how many dirt roads we keeping? That's our.
That's gonna
And the
drive
grader
us.
was used in past, we had the plow assembly and all that on it, it was actually used as a plow vehicle.
Are you using it again as a plow this year?
no, strictly as a backup, only if needed.
So that's gonna drive whether we get another one or not too, because now it's gonna sit half a year.
Again, we do have the equipment for it.
No, I'm just saying, we're talking about reducing the fleet and then.
Again, you have the truck, but I mean, a dump truck, but just saying. Again, not
It's,
today,
yeah.
down the road, I'm sure we'll talk about this in 2 years from now,
Yep.
but
So anyway, if we start to pare back, whether it's one of these, both of these, whatever it is, then eventually well, first of all, we pay cash for whatever we do buy, and then we pull back on the capital reserve fund appropriation every year, because we have to cover those contracting costs. If we start to contract more, we're gonna pay for it. We would start to save less for vehicles. That's, one of those trade-offs that we drift toward. So that's the extent of our thinking on vehicles at this point. Facilities, the gravel pit, our engineers are working up an estimate for us to do borings and analysis of what we have in the pit, what types of materials, how much is left, what can we use it for, how easy is it to get to,
Correct.
what else? That's pretty much everything the
yeah.
study would tell us, right?
Right. The value of the material that's
Yeah.
there.
We can't use everything that we own, just not the right stuff.
Correct. It's a
You
lot
can
of,
say that much more intelligently than I can.
well, the sand above ground is basically either a septic sand or just a fill to bring up the grade, a suitable material. All the material that we're getting for winter sand is being excavated, and so we're looking for it in the ground and then excavating out of the ground and making our winter product out of that. So there's no map. It's like, I think there's some there, and we go dig a hole and see what's there, and if there's something there, we'll take it out. If not, we'll move over to the next spot where we think there might be some. But there's no map that says, well, this was here according to this drill, and this was here.
So that's essentially what you'll get out of this.
That's the most immediate use. The next one would be, is there a market to sell the stuff we aren't gonna use?
Correct.
We can't use it, we don't wanna use it on our gravel roads.
Right. A lot of problems with the gravel roads right now, and the sanding all the time is plugged up the drainage in them. That's why we're doing these boxes and putting other materials in, because it's just filled up with silt, and they don't drain.
A year or two ago, you saw us shift to a larger, and we started buying a larger material
Like
for the
pea
gravel
stone.
roads. It was
Yeah.
even bigger than that.
It's bigger, yeah.
Instead of just taking what we had at the pit and putting it on the road, going buying a better material to put on the road. So we don't have a lot in the pit that we can use on our gravel roads. We don't know how much we can use to sand our roads in the winter. It's obviously a finite resource.
Yeah.
Eventually, we're gonna need another gravel pit, where we're gonna need to buy winter sand, because that pit's gonna empty out of the stuff that we can use. There's other fill materials we can use for things like ledge farm, but that's not the bulk of our work. The bulk of our work is sanding roads in the winter.
Right.
So, is there something else we can do with that material? That we can make some money with it, because we're not gonna use it.
Is there a value to the town?
Is there a value to it? So, that's the point of the study, is how many years of winter sand do we have left? Where is it? How can we get it efficiently? And what can we do with the rest of it that's there? We have to start looking over the horizon and thinking about life without a working gravel pit that's producing all the materials that we need. That day is gonna come. We're not there yet,
No.
but we don't know when that day is. Okay. Salt sheds.
Salt sheds, yeah, there's 3 salt shed buildings down there. I don't know how familiar everybody is down there, but they're made out of blocks, and they have a fabric with galvanized piping frame that houses them. They're in pretty rough condition. The blocks are really deteriorating from the salt eating away at them. There's definitely significant maintenance costs. I'd be surprised if a couple of them make it through the winter. Need to be looking at a different building down there to house us winter sand and salt.
How long have those been there?
10 years. I think we just finished paying for them. Like 6 months ago. I think it's 10 years. I'll double check, but I think it's 10.
They don't look like they're very expensive structures to put.
I don't know, somebody said it cost $80,000 to set that up, I'm not sure.
Might have, yeah.
For 3 of them?
Yeah,
Well, that doesn't seem like that's, you know, in the big scheme of things, that doesn't seem very expensive.
within the last 10 years.
Yeah, if they don't last, then what, yeah.
I guess it's the offset of,
I understand.
I see how much material those things, I've driven down there. I
Yeah.
know what you can put in there. They're pretty big.
Yep.
To build a building of some kind, you know, I mean, of that size, you know, I mean, how big of a line item is that gonna be?
I don't know yet.
Right, that's, you know, that's a question, you know, that could be, if you're asking to build $1 million salt shed, that's gonna be,
It would be cheaper to buy salt one dump truck at a time than it would be to,
well, again, that's, you know, or just to do this, even if it did last us 10 years, if it's you know, $10,000 a year, I don't know, it's, or, you know, less than that, but whatever. I'm just saying, you know, the projected goals to what you're thinking of putting there. You know, it's just to see, you know, again, just throwing out ideas, but throwing out an opinion.
garage, you've heard most of these before. Converting the waste oil furnace to propane, we spend a lot on maintaining that waste oil furnace. It doesn't hold up very well. We're constantly calling for service on it. I think it's time. The tank pad and fencing question comes back later. That's just a typo there.
Wait, where's that waste oil furnace you're talking about?
Second page.
No, I got it there. Which
Yeah.
one we talking about? Where is it?
Oh, highway garage, sorry.
Oh, highway garage, not the one at the,
Not the one at the recycling center.
good.
That one is doing okay. That one's, we don't spend anywhere near as much on that one as we won at the highway garage. So Primex, our insurance company, came over this summer, and did an inspection of the highway garage and gave us a list of things of, you know, you really ought to do this, you should do this, we'd like you to do this, it'd be nice if you could do that, that kind of list. They've already addressed a lot of the low-hanging fruit from a safety point of view, smaller dollar stuff. Still on that list, and these are different levels of need, want, wish, but fencing, most public works facilities that you see are fenced in, it's pretty standard. Fire suppression, Primex is particularly attuned to that because there are municipalities that, I think there are 2 that have lost their highway sheds in the last couple of years to fire. Obviously, you know, if they're full of vehicles, it's a catastrophic loss for them in the
Yep.
town. I think you're aware we don't have a well there. We have a hose that sticks in the river that fills the toilet. And there's some kind of pump, what do you call that kind of pump?
Well, they have a pump in there that pumps the water out of the river into a little amatrol tank.
Yeah.
that's the bathroom?
That's the bathroom.
Yes, there's no potable water, there's no water pressure for washing vehicles, there's no way to wash vehicles there. There's no drinking water. There's no fire suppression with water. Because there's no water pressure.
There's no drinking water?
Well, we bottle it in, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We touched on the vehicle washing, that keeps coming up. You know, we're seeing it in the deterioration of our equipment.
I think I'll let you wash vehicles right next to the river.
That's the tough part there, where you need to contain it, you need to do something. We don't have a solution, we just know we have a problem.
Maybe if the sand pit fizzles out, that could be a good home for a wash point.
Oh, sure, that would be a reasonable spot, in that we could punch a well in there and the sand would.
Concrete pad and the collection basins
Right,
and all that.
yeah,
Yeah, that sand's a beautiful filter.
yeah.
Yeah.
The fuel tanks, we dodged a bullet with the fuel tanks this summer. The identified solution there to keep the water out of the tanks was elevating the pad that the fill covers are on. We got a WAG on that at 20 grand. We're paying 6 grand a year now for algae treatment. We are 12 years in on these tanks, and I realized today, we don't know if it's a 20 or a 30 year. I had 30 in my notes, and he had 20 in his, so we gotta go back and figure that piece out, but,
Yep.
the question of do we stay in the fuel business remains, unsolved. And we have no office space to speak of. We have no place for the staff to sit and eat lunch or, and get away from the shed. There's that shop, as you know, that highway garage is one room. The hammers and the welders and the desk and everything are all in one space, so it's a constant headache for us. That is the full pile of identified, right? We didn't miss anything there in terms of, space. We can't fit our full fleet in the shed. That's,
Yep.
I think we knew that. That would be ideal, but I don't know the last time we could do that. Moving on to the recycling center, the building is okay. It's obviously nothing special, but it's limping along, no major issues there. Our biggest limitation there is the really outdoor space or any kind of way to reconfigure what we do or change the materials or the methods that we use in our recycling. The way the recycling market is changing, we may want to do things differently. It's just really hard to do anything differently. The layout is what the layout is, and if we wanted to do something different with cans or with glass or with whatever, we don't have any flexibility there to do that. If we wanted to do something different with a pricing structure, I think you had asked about that at some point this year. We're kind of limited in the configuration of what we're doing there. We're fine, we can keep going doing what we're doing, but we're a little boxed in there. And lastly, on facilities is the landfill. We left off with the PFOAs, PFAS. We went through a whole round of testing after discovering them, tested the residences around the landfill, and sent everything back to DES and said, this is what we think we ought to do in terms of ongoing monitoring. Just on Friday, we heard back from DES. I'm waiting for the engineers to translate what DES is telling us, but it looks like they want a pretty aggressive plan of how to monitor and perhaps deal with the stuff that we have on site. We still have no evidence that it's leaving the site and affecting any residents, but what that testing regimen is or what other kind of remediation or anything, we don't know yet, but that's starting to come together. We're all on our own there. This is not an insurance situation. It's not a, it's DES. You're not going to duck out of anything. So as we get into budget season, our engineers are going back and forth with DES right now. The step after that is to come back to us and say, this is what we've got to do and this is how we get there and what it costs. So that's one of the biggest unknowns coming into budget season right now is where's DES going to make us go on that? Anything else on that?
Nope.
So if those aren't big picture enough, the biggest picture questions, we've talked about the potential of shifting some or many of our services to a contractor-based way of doing business. We just touched on a couple of them today. There's lots of different, on a scale, there's lots of different ways you can do that. From a facility point of view, we've just identified a whole bunch of things that we think we need to do at Flutter Street and the highway garage. How much do you want to invest in that facility? That's just a kind of an open-ended question. We got plenty we could do there. But at some point we should pause and say, is this the right place to invest the money? And lastly, what's the recycling market gonna do to us? We are pretty well locked into our methods right now, what we recycle, how we process that material, how we charge for it or not charge for it. We don't have a lot of flexibility there. The last time we made any big changes in the recycling center, I know it was a long build-up and a big community discussion, and it was before my time, but I know it was pretty traumatic, changing the hours and, you know, I didn't live through it, but long lead time on that, because it affects so many people, and so we're not prepared to respond in any way to the recycling market. If there's any different way of doing things, we're not there yet. But we don't have a crystal ball on that either, so we're kind of stuck where we are. The price will keep going up. You know, we know our waste disposal costs are going up. New Hampshire's running out of landfill space. Recycling market's tanked. We're kind of structurally locked into eating those costs, which could be fine. It could be the service that people want, and that's what we do. But we haven't had a conversation around that in a long time, and we're not prepared to do anything differently, so.
Well, couldn't we also look at just the numbers of where we've been, like the past 5 years, of what the recycling's cost us and how much it keeps increasing?
Oh, yeah, we have all that.
Okay, that's-
Yeah. That's easy. It's easy to see how much more it's cost us. But those trends do only one thing, and.
Sure.
And that may be okay, but
Well,
how's that for a pile?
well, that's a pile.
Did I forget anything?
No, that's a
Next time you're doing this one.
I think it's excellent, though. Thank you for putting it together. I think it's good.
What about last page?
It's a very comprehensive picture of,
Well, so before we go on to the last page, so, I mean, so there's some things that have to be kind of like, talked about more immediate than others, like the ledge farm and how we approach that. By just immediate, I mean for next year's budgeting and town meeting. What about the others? Like, are there things like that you're gonna come back to us with recommendations on, like salt sheds, and whether or not they actually should be replaced and when? So are you gonna kind of like take some of these other things and kind of like timeline and prioritize them out? Okay,
Yeah, we've got to do that for CIP.
yeah,
That's a kind of a forced ranking process.
yeah,
As the road projects shuffle out in November and wrap up, I think we'll probably be coming in December with, looking for decisions on which path do we pursue for Ledge Farm.
yep,
And what do we do with unspent monies, for, you know, do we do things for Ledge Farm? Do we try and do things instead of next year's operating budget?
yep,
We
Yep.
got a couple small pieces of equipment, we got that gravel pit study. You know, I think those are things, the gravel pit study, the sooner we start, the sooner we can use the knowledge that we get out of it.
yep,
Guardrails probably next spring kind of thing, unless we race, you know, depending on, but we'll start to prioritize some of that for you, but, I don't know what else is in the mix for short term.
small equipment purchases.
Yeah, little stuff that would otherwise be in the budget.
Okay.
You know, you might see some of that
Okay.
come through.
good.
Okay. Last sheet of paper is a memo from Sean with something he brought to me and I'm bringing to you in concept. We don't have a formal arrangement for after hours anything. We kind of expect our people to be at our beck and call, but we don't have any structure to it. Sean's lived in a lot of different lives and
So what I've just,
come up with this concept.
is a on-call process, rotated throughout the staff, through the winter months. for a week, 7-day period. I'll be on that as well. I will not be seeing any of the cash that's proposed in this memo, because I am salary. But I find it works effectively, and I haven't had any issues with it.
I'm shocked that we haven't gone to this sooner.
Yeah, no, I think it
It
makes
seems
a lot
like-
of sense.
Yeah. Can you
Makes sense.
accommodate it within the existing budget?
Right, makes sense.
In 2019, we can, 2020, it'll move.
You'll have to work it in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we've waited on icy roads, if people are going down at 5 o'clock in the morning, and there's nobody there to help them, and the roads are basically shut down, the cop's like, oh, I can't do anything till the highway department shows up. And they don't show up till
Right.
7:30, and then,
So it develops a sense of accountability
Oh,
to-
yeah.
with the staff.
Yeah.
Are
Great
they
idea.
back on 5 days now? That was just a summer thing, right?
Yeah, 7 to 3.
Good, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think this is great.
No, I agree, I like it.
yeah, I like it.
What is the staffing up to now, Sean?
sorry,
We're back down.
but then we're going back up.
We're going back up. We went up, but today was
I'm sorry I
definitely,
I'm sorry I smirked.
I had a note on my desk this morning from the new guy that started that said, I terminate my employment.
Oh, no.
So that's where my Monday started.
Oh,
But he bounced right back.
Excellent.
I've hired somebody else.
nice.
Good. So what's the number?
Same number.
4, 3, what is it? 4?
How many years time?
Full-time, yes.
Yeah, local resident.
Perfect, like it.
Great.
Very nice.
Are you, it's just you and Brian that's out of town, right?
Pardon me?
Is it just you and Brian that lives outside of town?
Me, Adam.
Oh, Adam too, right.
Well, Sean, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
You're doing a much better job than that Sterndale guy who was running the department for us.
Second that. Running is a,
Loose term.
all right, if you have nothing else for Public Works, I have one last thing on the agenda for you, which is that rec revolving purchase. I don't know if you have any questions or concerns.
No, that looked all pretty straightforward to me.
Sounds good to me.
Fine with it, I read it.
Yeah, I'll take a motion if nobody has any
Do you
objections.
need a motion?
Yes, because this is coming out of the rec revolving fund. and,
yeah.
I would like to do that.
So just so I have a clear understanding, we're looking at 5,500?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that the select board approves the expenditure of $5,500 from their rec revolving fund for new registration software, startup training, and operating costs.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor? It's unanimous.
Courtney did a good job of laying out expressing the need and benefit
Did a
for it.
great job.
Make a motion to adjourn, if we're done.
Do we have a private?
We done?
Do we have
I'm
a,
sick of listening to me.
Okay.
I will second it then.
All right, motion and a second, all in favor? Meeting's adjourned.